another Three Amigos Las Damas podcast. Two lads, one lady. This is the Other Three Amigos podcast, Las Damas.
On this week's Las Damas, we're at 5 managerial casualties, but Decky is desperately hoping we can get to 6. We announced the new Wexford manager and hope that we are right. Which Shamrock Rovers staff member is getting annoyed with us? Eileen actually can't remember. Is Bishopstown fit for purpose? Our player of the season? And we look back at the last game of the season where the ref got Megan Smyth lynched. Hello and welcome to Toe Tap episode 173. It's Las Damas back again this week, live from Toe Tap Towers on Sunday night. And this is the last Las Damas of the season. So it's a little emotional, Eileen, isn't it?
Is it? I think we're all ready to put this season to bed, aren't we?
Absolutely. John O'Sullivan is again joining us from Tipperary. John, how's things in Tipperary?
Things in Tipperary are grand. At least I had a shorter drive home after Friday night than some people. And I'm still cranky. So I might as well get out of the way early.
Yeah. I was going to say don't mention Friday night, but unfortunately we'll have to mention it later on because there are probably repercussions for the women's side of the club as well. But look, we will drive on with what has now become our traditional start to Las Damas. And we'll say since the last pod, Treaty announced yesterday that Albin Heisa had left, which brings the total to 4 managers that are 4 clubs that need to make managerial appointments. That Shels, Wexford, Treaty and Sligo have done theirs already. If we include Bowes, guys, it becomes 5. And obviously Bowes, I don't think they ever announced it, but like they did get rid of the manager and there is going to have to be a replacement sought. That's 5. So the question then, Eileen, is where does the 6th one come from? That precious 6th manager, where's that going to come from?
So who do we have left? James O'Gallen isn't going anywhere. Their young players are too good, and I don't think the older players now are going to go anywhere because you have Champions League and that's huge. Who else is there? DLR? No, I think DLR will stick with Laura. Collie O'Neill could be the one. I don't know. They love him. So yeah. It just leaves you need a stack to fall at Athlone, doesn't it? Like Phil Trill's not going anywhere at Galway. They had a brilliant season.
Yeah. That's it. And I mean, it really does require Kieran Kilduff to get the Shelburne job, which then opens up the Athlone job for me to get to the 6. I think, unless something surprising happens. But it's hard to see any surprises, still. John, isn't it? Don't like being wrong.
Yeah. No, I still think you've got a chance that Kieran Kilduff will end up somewhere else. So you could get there in the end.
Somewhere else, not just specifically Shels. Are you saying that he might?
Oh no, I think Shels would be
somewhere other than Shels.
No. I don't think so. I think Shels is probably
right.
A good bet
Okay, that's it. Because I thought you were going to drop some sensational news there that none of us had known yet. Listen, I believe that Wexford have made an appointment. I don't know whether this is an exclusive or not, but look, we throw it out there anyway and see what happens. Paul O'Reilly is the new Wexford manager. He's the head of football in the IT in Carlow. That's what I'm hearing, led to believe. I don't know, is that a left field appointment, Eileen? I wouldn't know enough about it, to be honest. Or I have no idea who Paul O'Reilly is, to be honest.
To be fair, I think it probably is an exclusive because you were the first person I've heard mention it.
So I think it's God, I'm right.
I wouldn't think it's that left field based on their ties with Carlow IT. Or I don't even, like, they obviously train there and stuff like that. I'm sure it's probably not even called Carlow IT anymore, but called some other fancy name. But yeah, look, I suppose it's an interesting one to come off the usual suspects. But yeah, look, it's a Decky exclusive. The Decky call is going on well, and now Decky exclusives as well. So, to be fair now, Deck, you have to say, for a lad who really only is after getting into the women's game in the last year and a half, you're very in the know. Even outside of Cork now, now you're announcing the Wexford manager. It's impressive.
It's what I keep saying to the lad, just talk to people, just have conversations with people. You're amazed what people will tell you. It's absolutely no. This could be wrong. It could be wrong. I don't know. There's no reason to completely trust who told me. And can I? I can't really.
No, don't hang out your source. No.
No. I'm not going to hang out the source. But I was going to say, I know somebody who was in for the job who thought they had got it, and then they were informed last night that they didn't get it. So that ties in with,
that someone
the
else has it,
timing
yeah.
of this coming through and things like this, so, yeah, look, we might park it there and just wish all the new managers who have to face us next year the very best. We will hunt you down and take your jobs and do all those things as the year goes on. Guys, just in general, talking there of Albin leaving Treaty, I think he did an unbelievable job up there. I mean, I know they still finished second bottom. They got 11 points, but the progress that was made with a squad that's averaged out at about 18 and a half years of age over the course of the season, I think he can be happy and proud of the job he done there, John, can't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they put it up to a lot of teams as well. There's a lot of games there that they possibly deserve more points out of than they got. But yeah, look, no different to Cork City. He was working with a very, very young squad there. And probably on paper, the weakest squad in the league. But, he really had them playing well. They gave Piedmont a right rattle in the cup. It's been a good season. And I think he's, what would I say, the job he did at Treaty has probably put him really well in the shop window for someone else to come in and snap him up.
You talk about they're in a lot of games and things like that. They were beaten 1-0 yesterday by Bowes, and I mean this penalty that was given by Mark Lynch is just, what can you even say, Eileen? I mean, it's just horrific.
Yeah, to be fair, I thought our referee in Bishopstown was atrocious yesterday, and then I got home and I saw that penalty. Oh my God. I genuinely thought now the Shelburne, was it their second goal yesterday, was a disgrace, that it wasn't a free. And then I went home and I saw that and I was like, how's that a worse decision again? It's really hard. And look, you speak about this on the men's pod. I think probably every League of Ireland podcast talks about the standard of refereeing, and it has to be better. Do you know what I mean? They're being paid to be there. Look, I think refereeing is changing now in terms of the FEI. It's coming under the coach education banner. So I hope that there can be changes made there, because first of all, I said the standard needs to be better, but there needs to be accountability as well. And I think that's a big issue throughout the leagues here. If you make what is playing for everyone to see a desperate call, you're still out refereeing again the next week. There's never any punishment for getting it badly wrong. And that should be happening, because without that happening, it's just going to keep being atrocious. And look, at the end of the day, referees are human, and we can all watch a match and the three of us can have different opinions on whether something is or isn't a penalty, and I get that. But when there's stuff that is so blatantly wrong, it's just it's so frustrating. Football in this country is coming on a lot in terms of players' capabilities and technicality and everything like that, and we're being held back by refereeing, and it does need to improve. But I suppose what kind of irritates me a lot more, look, it's not all referees, but a lot of them they're so arrogant. They're so arrogant. They can't accept they're wrong. You could see it in the puffing out the chest, it's not nice. And they're easily led as well. We'll talk about the Shelburne game in a minute, but I've never seen a referee as easily led as what happened in Bishopstown yesterday.
But I don't believe for a second Mark Lynch gives that penalty in a men's game.
I'd agree with you. I think he it's just a disgraceful decision. But anything that's that's, and it was the same with the Shels game, the City Shels game. It seems to be that the higher profile club or the bigger club gets the vast majority of the 50-50 calls, but that penalty decision wasn't even a 50-50. Treaty keeper comes out, catches the ball over the player's head, who then falls down, and it's just ridiculous. But again, I think the thing is what Eileen said. There's no consequences, because there's so few referees that they trust. The same refs go back out the following week, and they might even get bigger games than the ones they've messed up in.
Absolutely. And look, Mark Lynch has done big men's first division games this year. He refereed the second leg, which I was at in Cove, of the Cove Wexford game, of that playoff tie. That was a massive game. That was given to a referee that they respected and they thought they could handle it. And he was fine that night. There was no issue with his refereeing that night, except the game probably should have been abandoned. But to be fair to him, he couldn't abandon it because there was no other time to play it. But my thing about he wouldn't give that penalty in a men's game comes from the fact that the Treaty players, shrugged their shoulders, left a couple of roars, and they walk back. And he knows he's not going to come under any pressure from Treaty players. There aren't enough people in the ground to make his life uncomfortable. If he gives that penalty in Turner's Cross or Dalymount Park at a Bows game, or he gives it at Talc or wherever, where there's 4,000 people, he's going to be ripped apart. He's going to be ripped apart by the men's players on the pitch, because they will just go for it. They won't physically go for him, obviously, but I mean, he'll be giving out yellow cards for dissent, and I firmly believe they get psychologically, they just go, look, I can give this here and nobody's going to say boo. Whereas if it's a men's game, he's going, there's no way I'm giving that penalty because I'm not going to take all the shit that comes my way. And I'm not saying there should be shit given to them in the women's game by the players on the pitch, but I think it's easier not to give a penalty, Eileen, or not give a card or do what you want to do when you know there's not going to be a pushback from the players on the pitch.
Yeah, it's an awful lot easier, as you said. And look, I actually hate, it's an aspect of football I hate, seeing players surround referees, and actually think football can learn an awful lot for rugby, because you could see it at the top level and it filters down, and then you see it at underage level, and it's terrible. But the fact is, it's there. I do feel, I suppose the other side is you're up in Dalymount Park, and again, we've spoke about before, you have two lines people there. Someone has to go on there and say, that is not, are you high? Are you high given that penalty? There has to be better communication there. Do you know what I mean? It's not one set of eyes. There's three set of eyes and probably a fourth official. They're in communication with each other. It has to be as simple as say, come here, boy, did you just blink or something? But you've got that wrong there now. Because that is not good enough. It's so, so bad. And as you said, and again, we'll get around to it in a minute, you talking about things don't happen, and you could see, and that's I suppose again why the sides down the bottom don't get stuff is because you see experienced players we saw in Bishopstown yesterday just get at the referee, and he completely changed how he referees the game. The players aren't wrong in doing that. Conor McCormick did it very, very well for us for a long time. You need players like that to do that, but not every club has those players. Do you know what I mean? And it's a bit of experience and a bit of nous to know what referees are going to be really easily swayed. And in the League of Ireland, it seems to be a very large majority of them.
Both women were obviously on the pitch in Dalymount Park yesterday. They were on the pitch the previous Friday night when the Cork after the Cork City game. Now, we don't know what went on here, but there was lots or a few of Bo's Twitter accounts and a few of the players unhappy that seemingly they were invited to the end of season awards, which were happening on the pitch. Then the women's awards didn't happen on the pitch after that game. Then Bo's played it off as, oh, no, you were just invited, but your awards wasn't happening here. They're happening after the Treaty game at Dalymount Park and the last game of the season. And it's I don't know. I mean, why are you inviting them on the Friday night if you're not doing their awards on the pitch like you're supposed to? And, did Daniel Lambert forget to do it? Did he, never have an intention in doing it? I don't know. I don't talk to any players at Bows, but seemingly the word is that everybody is welcome at Bows except our women's players.
I'm afraid to comment about Bohemians after the abuse I got the other night.
Yeah, it's
But you can, obviously, you can be you could be equal and call women really horrible names on Twitter. So look, they do kind of base a little bit of equality, to be fair now.
So were their awards forgotten about, or were they just invited along to be on the pitch?
I would say their awards were forgotten about. I think if you look at Bose, even if you look at it, and it's something you've brought up, Decky, like, so their men play on a Friday night and they have this brilliant match day graphic. They have a brilliant team lineup and it's all really, really professional looking. Then the women are playing on a Saturday and it's just a tweet of their names. They don't view their women as at all equal. Like, to be fair with us, and like I'd be the first to give out about Cork City and an awful lot of things, but like Aaron Howie always has a match graphic for the women. He always has everything done the exact same for the women as what is done for the men. Bows don't do that, so it doesn't surprise me to see that they're forgotten about in that kind of situation. And it's a bad look for a club that pride themselves on this moral high ground and we look at everything equal. We're the most welcoming club in the world. It's nonsense. Like, it's absolute nonsense, and it can be proved time and time again that it's nonsense. So I do feel for the players, because I think Bohemians women had a great season, and I do think they should have, like, when you're having them there, just do the awards, because you have a really big crowd at that match. It's their last game before the cup final as well, so I'd say Daily Mount was probably sold out for that game against City. So like, again, a bit of respect. I think players deserve better.
And can I just say, if there are any Bows fans listening to this, before you come after us on Twitter, yes, we know our women's team is shed or poor, and B, yes, we know we're relegated and playing in the first division next year. C, we don't care. It doesn't bother us. And D, it doesn't change anything that we say about your club on either of our two podcasts. So just remember that before you decide to come after us again. John, in distressing news for the League of Ireland women's Twitter account, who have only in the last few minutes tweeted that the race for second was actually never a thing and never really mattered to anybody, Shams have now finished third. And they led 4-1 with 30 minutes to play, but a 94th minute equaliser from Matt Lone meant the game finished 4-4. How will the FAI and the League of Women's Twitter account ever recover? Things will never be the same again.
Never. Sure, they'll make Collie O'Neill manager of the year and everything will go back to normal again. It'll be grand. It was I didn't see the game now, but I do intend enjoying the Athlone goals later on, because it was a bit of an implosion really when you've second wrapped up and then it all falls apart at the end. Look, it doesn't impact our results or our game, but the whole changing the game thing and all that, it's and the favouritism they have been shown by the league account and all, and everyone in the league office, it's kind of funny to see it fall a bit flat in its face at the final hurdle.
Yeah, and like, I know we're going back to the same stuff again, Eileen, and I know we're repeating ourselves, and we can come across as being very petty and very anti-Shamrock Rovers, I guess, if you were listening from the outside and thing, but like, who cares? It's funny, like, so let's drive it on.
Yeah, like, they're agitated because one of their staff had a go at me on Twitter last night, obviously after a few drinks, and deleted it this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Who was that? Yeah. Go on, name and shame. Go on.
I actually can't remember his name, and that's the worst thing. Like, and it's, again, like, well, look at your women's team and look at your men's team. And I'm like, I know we're not good, like, but I can still enjoy your misery.
Yeah.
Like, but no, like, I look back at the goals last night. Like, I have to say, for Athlone, like, it was brilliant comeback. Like, because, like, if you look at Shamrock over season, like, they don't give up an awful amount of goals or anything like that. And as you said, you kind of think that the game is dead and buried. And like, that late goal means Dana Sheriff won the Golden Boot as well, which is brilliant. And I want to say, as much as we give out about Shamrock Rovers, I'm always at length to say it's nothing against the players. And I have to point out that as soon as that game was over, Anya Gorman was apparently first across the pitch to congratulate Dana Sheriff. Like, so I mean, that's, you have to kind of point out the good as well when it happens. And look, I'd expect that from her anyway, because I think she's a classy operator. But yeah, look, it's just the favouritism they were shown by the league account. Again, the nonsense some of the people behind the scenes came out with, this RTE were running with it. Like, it was all a bit like, it was a two fingers to everyone else in the league. People have trucked for years and years in this league, like, and it was a set of two fingers to all them. And the comments that were made, and then the fact that everyone just jumped on board that they were the saviours. And it was nonsense, like, and so it is nice to see them end the season poorly, like, and as I said, it's not a reflection on the players, not at all, but it's everything around it, and it's kind of one of those things. Look, I look forward to next year when we can go back to kind of disliking everyone, but for this season, it was kind of fun being united behind a common enemy.
Yeah, like it's gas now because we've had a go off Bows, we've had a go off Rovers. We're absolutely going to have a go off Shelburne later on when we're doing the match review. So I mean, we're 3 for 3, perfect hat trick. Any of you want some absolutely useless stats in relation to the League of Ireland Women's Team of the Week stuff? And when I say useless, I mean absolutely useless. Like, but so I had this thing in my head that if I went back through all the teams of the week, that I would find an unbelievable bias towards Shamrock Rovers, and unfortunately I didn't. It's gutting, but I didn't. There's nothing I could do. But look, so I've gone back over the whole lot, the 22 weeks. They're all there. And as I said, absolutely useless stats. Piedmont had 42... I can't say different players, but they had 42 players in the different teams of the weeks over the year. Shamrock Rovers had 33, Shelburne's 32, Galway 31, then it drops at Lone and Bows both on 24, Wexford 18, DLR 13, Sligo 10, Treaty 9, and Cork City 6. So, as I said, there's some useless team of the week stats for the year for you. The one thing that did jump out of me, Piedmont had a player in the team of the week every week of the season. Barred their bye weeks, obviously. Not even Shamrock Rovers could get a player in their bye week.
I was going to say, how did they have a player? Like, they were hammered against Shelburne, or like their one loss in the season. I'm surprised they had someone in that week.
You got to trust my spreadsheet here now, Eileen.
I do trust it.
I'm just again and double check.
I'm just surprised that they had someone. I would have expected them to have someone else in every week because I think they were good, but just that particular game they were hammered in. Yeah. Was it like 4-1 or something?
What I was going to say, bar
whoever scored their
bar 1 week.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
They scored a goal. You get in.
The only week. The only week they didn't have. Hang on, no, Piedmont. Yeah, I'm right. The only week they didn't have a player in was 2 weeks ago when they were beaten 3-0. The week after winning the league.
Okay.
Who beat them 3-0? Was it Galway beat them 3-0?
Galway, yeah.
Yeah. Week 21, that's the only week they didn't have a player in the team of the week. So, look, fair play to Piedmont anyway. Okay, very quickly. Manager of the year, Eileen?
James O'Callaghan. Hands
down.
John? No argument.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think considering the players they lost, all the noise, he's definitely the happiest man in the league anyway. I'd go along with that.
It is, James.
I think,
it's all.
Yeah, and I think Phil Trill had a brilliant year. I think Galway had a brilliant year as well.
Yeah, they did. Finished really
but it
well
is,
as well.
Yeah, but it is James. Has to be like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you for a noble mention because I did feel like Phil Trill deserved a mention somewhere along the line. So Eileen's covered that off. So we keep going. And player of the year?
Sive Doyle.
Yeah,
interesting.
Eileen's right again. If you'd asked me first, I would have said that, and then I would have had Eileen backing me up. But no, I'd agree. I think she ran the show for Piedmont this year.
Is in particular in the first half of the season, so when they played all of like their rivals around them, she was brilliant in all those games. She probably wasn't as good after the break, but she's still an 8 out of 10 every week. So for me, Sive, I think.
Yeah. Any notable mentions? Anybody you think deserves a shout out?
Yeah, I think Jess Fitzgerald will probably be close enough. And I think Maggie Pearce at Shelburne and Jenna Slattery at Galway both had really, really good years. And Jess Hennessy, for someone going into a new side, playing with all new players at Shamrock Rovers, and off the back of her breakthrough season last year, I thought she was excellent as well.
John, I know it was a week ago, but I just want to nip back to our under-17 game against Treaty in what was the Shield final. Because of our schedule last week, that game was played after we recorded and we couldn't get a chance to come back to it. Beaten 1-0. almost last kick of the game, an injury time winner for Treaty, shouldn't take away from the season that team has had?
No. And again, pretty much every single girl in the squad is under 17 again next year. The work Craig's done with them this year has been phenomenal, to be honest. They had a bit of a slow start. No, without really losing any matches, bit of a slow start. Drew a good few games that they might have thought they would have won on paper, but it was like everyone came together from scratch the start of this year. Completely new team, completely new management, and to end up in the final. And look, again, it's the second under 17 final in a row after Shels up in Talca last year, where the last kick of the game has cost City an under 17 cup. But no, I shouldn't take away from how good that team has gone. I think it was 11 or 12 games unbeaten up to the cup final as well. They just went on a remarkable run. And look, a credit to the club and to Craig, and just kudos for all the hard work his team put in this year. It was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to those girls, and hopefully we see them all back next year and we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more in depth about them again. Eileen, just popped into my head now. Should we give a quick mention to the Wexford under-19 side that won the cup? Having beaten us in the semi-final.
Yeah, great win for them, in fairness. They rolled out the superstars again, so job done for them. They had to get some joy
fantastic.
this year, didn't
all
they?
Those young developing... all those young developing girls who showed up to play in the under-19 final. Fantastic to see that amount of ability amongst them. Fair play to Wexford.
Yeah, did you see that girl, Ellen Malloy? God, I know where she came from, but a really, really bright future.
She looks good, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. She's a prospect. Yeah.
I think she might play for Ireland, lads, senior, I'd say. If she keeps going the way she's going, I think she might, yeah.
God, I trust you.
Bold prediction.
Interesting to see.
Bold prediction, yeah.
Yeah. Guys, I guess we might as well hit the big topic, the big reason we're here. Shelburne at home. At home. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Shelburne in Bishopstown last Saturday. 5-1 defeat. But Eileen, before we start on the game itself, you wanted to talk about Bishopstown. Well, we all wanted to talk about Bishopstown and how it's set up and how it looks. I just want to say the thing that struck me walking into Bishopstown on Saturday was the number of faces who were at that women's game that you either met or you saw or had been in Tala on the Friday night. And people got home from Tala 1:30, 2:00, 2:30, whatever it was, whether you stopped, you didn't stop, etc. And less than 12 hours later, a lot of those, there's people in Bishopstown watching the women's team who have had their hearts broken in Tala. And it's just like, it just struck me walking in and walking up the stand. It was like, there's people at this club who just give everything no matter what. And this season has just been a massive kick in the bollocks for every one of them. And the club needs to do better for its supporters across the whole lot. Women's, men's, youths, academies, whatever it is. The whole club just needs to get its shit together once and for all and start repaying some of the support and the faith that it gets from its fan base. But apart from that, back to Bishopstown, Eileen, it's in some state, is it not?
Yeah, so I suppose my attention was drawn to it. Kev Doyle, I think is his name. He does stats there for Shelburne. I don't know. Actually, Deck, you would probably enjoy his Twitter account. So give him a follow. But he had pictures up. He happened to be at the game and he just had pictures up because if he goes to a new ground, he puts things up. So he said, a late addition to the stadiums for the year. And he had 4 pictures up. And go on, everyone, if you're listening and look at them. I'll actually retweet it. It's like you could see the pictures in desperate condition. Of course it is, the weather's been terrible. But I was at the match with my small one and I was like, I'm going to just wander around because I always think when I drive into Bishopstown, it's really drab looking. I think there's an awful lot of weeds. It just looks shit. So I took a walk around. If you're going up, say, the Murphy's Farm side of the stand, it's impossible to almost walk to the stand because it's just muck. Have something down there. There's just a couple of sheds that are just there's just shit falling out of it. There's pallets all over the place. It looks terrible. And all I was thinking in my head was if we're trying to attract players to this club, both men's and women's players, is this where they're brought first? Because like I'm then in my head thinking, like, imagine a player coming over and he's going to maybe choose between Shamrock Rovers and Cork City, and he's brought to Roadstone, that probably like shiny and beautiful setup, like, and then to Cork City where there's just pallets and no one could even put down a bit of weed killer. Like we've heard our owner speak about like match day experiences and stuff, and for a match day experience, Bishopstown is horrible. Like I was embarrassed. Like, and I after the game, then I spoke to a couple of Shelburne people, players and staff, and like there's a massive hole in the wall in the dressing room. Like, and like I presume our first team probably used that at training as well. And I just think, look, I get we don't own Bishopstown, and my understanding is we could be kind of kicked out there at any stage, but like put down a little bit of weed killer, just have a little bit of pride in it, because it says Cork City FC as soon as you drive in. So, like, to anybody from the outside looking in, they're going to say, this place is an absolute shithole. Is this what they have? Is this Cork City FC? Because to the outside looking in, that's Cork City FC. And while at the moment that's probably really fitting and matches where stuff is on the pitch, that's not good enough. We are one of the biggest clubs in the country, and I firmly believe that. But like, have a little bit of pride in yourself. Have a little bit of pride in where you train, in where people are coming to watch academy games, who are coming to watch women's games. It's like I walked in then to the bathroom, and like the entire place is just an absolute dive. It's terrible. It, like, if you want to talk about, like I said, I'm not suggesting pump a load of money into it. I'm not at all. But like, just like anyone listen to this, drive out there during the week. Genuinely, I understand there's a little bit of stuff going on outside the gate in terms of people dumping rubbish. I understand the club could do nothing about that. But like, as soon as you go inside the gates, it's an absolute shithole. It looks terrible.
John, it's hard to follow that, John. So maybe we won't bother.
Can I just add one thing to it, actually? Because we play a summer league in our local club, and we were planning to bring 80 girls to the last Cork City game of the season. And when it got moved from Turner's Cross to Bishopstown, I kind of had to say to the coach that were organising it, you can't bring 80 girls down there because the facilities, it'll actually put them off going to matches because the facilities are that bad in terms of bathrooms, walking around there. It just, and so that, like,
Yeah.
I know, look, if it had gone ahead, the club would have given us tickets for free, but they probably would have made a bit on the shop, things like that. It did cost them a bit, so we're all off to the cup final instead now with that group, and it's costing the club probably more money. But things like that have an impact in, wider than just ourselves as well, who will be there regardless of where the games are played.
Just, you actually brought something up there that I had forgotten. There was no charge going in on Saturday, so fair play to the club for not charging.
Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, Johnny would have got in for nothing anyway, but you still would have had no toilets to use, and yeah, would have been grand. The other note I have here is just ball girls ? One of the things about Bishopstown is it's wide open, and it really is wet, especially on the far side. Balls go behind the goals, into briars and whatnot on the far side. Like, I don't know what the plan is for next year, but if we're going to play games in Bishopstown next year, John, I think it's vital that there is ball girls or deals done with local clubs to get teams in to fill that role for any games that might be there next year, especially at a women's national league level anyway.
Yeah, it just looks daft having now when the ball went out, would say, as you're in the stand, when the ball went out the left hand side of the goals, I think there was someone there just kicking balls back. But at the start of the game, Hannah Walsh was running behind the goal, running through shit in her boots to get the ball to bring back to take kickouts. Players going into briars and nettles and stuff on the far side of the pitch to retrieve balls. All you need is someone there just to roll the ball. Have 3 balls on the far side, couple of kids behind the goals, roll the ball back when it goes out, and just it doesn't have to be the kids themselves. Let someone else be around the back of the goals, then doing the digging in weeds and nettles and all that. But it just needs to be like someone going and strim it as well as part of it. Like it's kind of like while we don't own it, to Eileen's point, you can have a bit of pride in that's where you're setting up. Go in and take a bit of care of it. Again, this is not no slight on the new owner, because it's been this way for a couple of years. But when Forest first took Bishopstown back, there was days organised every year where you'd have a clean up day in Bishopstown. People would go around, and there'd be 40, 50 people, in and around there, tidying stuff up, giving it a lick of paint. That kind of ethos seems to have gone. Again, that seems to have gone with a number of years, not reflective of the new owner, but it'd be nice to get that kind of sense of pride in what is effectively your home back.
Finally, so guys, on this, and as I just said, I don't know what the plan is for next year. We have no insight. We've no idea. But if the plan was to hold the women's games in Bishopstown, ideally, should the women's side be looking for a different home ground for next season, Eileen?
They have to come to some agreement, like, with the club. And if this means, like, I know all of the Women's National League, or whatever you want to call it, Decky, players now have a tie-in with the PFAI. Like, I think whoever is our liaison for the club, if that's club captain or whoever it is, need to maybe put a bit of pressure on the club. If Turner's Cross is your home ground, then you fight for us to be in Turner's Cross. It's not good enough that we've been out of there almost half of our games this season. If Turner's Cross not our home ground, where do we go? Like, and if your home ground is your home ground, you fight for it. And as is, like, it's not, I understand we don't own Turner's Cross, I get that, but it would never happen that a men's game would be kicked out to Bishopstown. And granted, they're going to say, oh yeah, well, crowds or whatever, but like, a pitch is either playable or it's not playable. Like, it's always playable for the men. It's playable for everything else that goes on in Turner's Cross. It just seems to be unplayable when it's women's games. So if that is your home ground, the club have to be willing to make a commitment to those players that we are going to fight that you play all of your games there. Maybe if we have to move one max, there has to be something. But to the other side of that, and I brought it up, I think, on the men's pod last week, in our licensing agreement, is Turner's Cross our home ground? And if it is, surely there should be something within that would state we have to play most of our games there, like 95% of them. But again, look, licensing, I don't think the FAI really care. But like, for me, and I think Wayne said it last year, I'd nearly dig in and like say, why are we playing there? Because it is that case of what's worse than giving them something than just taking it away when it suits you, because that's what it has been. Like, I suppose the most ridiculous one being the game in May where they moved it like 4 days in advance because a weather warning that never happened. Like, I mean, that was probably a sign of things to come, really, when we look back on it. Like, but yeah, look, we don't know what's going to happen. But as I said, I think if I'm a player, if I'm a Cork City Women's player now, I'm getting onto the PFAI with a list of grievances, to be honest, and that would be high enough up on the list.
John, do they need to have a think about something maybe outside of Turner's Cross and Bishopstown? Is there another facility, obviously we took the All-Ireland League games to Fermoy, and I think Derek Collin had a big part to play in that. Is there any merit to even, do you know what? Let's take different games around the county and maybe play a game in West Cork or play a game in Fermoy and play a game in Blarney. And I know then you're looking in, issues with facilities and crowds and this kind of stuff. But I don't know, as I said, is there any merit to thinking along those kind of lines?
I think for friendlies there is, but for your league and cup matches, you need to have a fixed home ground. And something that I remember a conversation with Thierry Henry years and years ago, an interview with Thierry Henry. I didn't know him personally.
I was like, oh my God.
I was just going, I was
really jealous there.
Myself and Thierry. But no, he gave an interview where he spoke about his experience when Arsenal moved from Highbury to the Emirates and the visual cues he had within Highbury, that wherever he was on the pitch, he was so used to playing there, he knew exactly where the goal was based on his position. And he said it took him a while to relearn that when they moved to the Emirates. So I think that's one of the things people don't realise when you talk about having a home, is the consistency of the surroundings, the build-up, your match day prep, your match day routine. But to go back to Turner's Cross, there's only one of two things that can be happening. And one is either again, and this could be, I don't know when the contracts were signed, so this could be going back a number of years, but either the club hasn't protected the women's teams enough in the agreement or the contract or whatever it is with the MFA, or the MFA are reneging on that contract by not allowing women's games to be played there. It's one of the two. And if it's the former, I agree completely with Eileen. The club need to actually start playing, start fighting for the women's team and getting the games in there. And if it's the latter, I think they do need to look for somewhere else. There's no, again, all the players that you speak to want to play in Turner's Cross. It's Cork City's home ground, men's and women's. But you can't just be given something and then taking it away non-stop. It makes no sense whatsoever.
No, absolutely. Look, if they could play them in Buin next year, it would really help me out a lot. But the facilities
build a
might not be
stand?
up to scratch. Well, look, I mean, we can do anything in Buin. We can do anything. Just, I'll get onto the committee and we'll go from there. The pitch is like that, though. Slope doesn't cover it, but sure, look, we'll get over that. Guys, onto the game, I suppose. Quickly, just to note that Shauna Cashman was on the bench for the first time. So congratulations to her on that achievement. Eileen, Megan Smyth-Lynch. Wonderful, wonderful player. Terrible referee.
Yeah. I thought if you're a Shelburne fan, you're probably saying Megan Smyth-Lynch, great player, great referee, no? Yeah, it was. Now, I will say, I thought in the first half, we couldn't even barely touch the ball. They were excellent in the first half, but it then wasn't helped. When you have a team that's that much on top, they don't need an extra hand. They didn't need the hand referee, but you decided to give them one. That second goal, it's a foul every single day of the week in every single league in the world. It's so much of a foul that when it happens 5 minutes later, he gives a free out. The exact same thing happened. And to be fair, it happens and Hannah nearly gets injured. And the only reason Hannah almost gets injured is because the referee hasn't offered her the protection in the first place, that the player now feels, I can go in and plough through the keeper. So the keeper, we nearly have a player really badly injured because of poor refereeing. So player welfare is a big, big issue there. I have no issue. Obviously, I do have an issue when it's happening against my team with players getting in the referee's ear and essentially refereeing a game. As I said, if we had a player that was doing that, I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to see it happening. But they didn't need an extra hand, and he really did his best for them. And it wasn't even with a big call like the goals. It was every single little call, and there was no consistency in it. He zoned in on Shauna McCarthy, and it didn't matter what she did. Quite literally, if she even looked at the ball, he was given a free against her. It was outrageous stuff. But we all just stood there and took it. At one stage, I did think James might be sent off, but he was actually fairly refined. At one stage, I thought myself and yourself, Deck, you might be asked to leave the stadium, but no, they decided against that because other than that, unless now I suppose we were down the far side, so maybe City fans were going nuts. But look, we spoke about it a while ago. It's frustrating in terms of the game. As I said, I thought we never really got going, and that's probably to be expected. We've had a bit of a layoff. Shelburne went with their cup final team. We speculated would they, and I thought Rachel Graham in the centre of the park for them was very, very good. And when she went off, she got booked. So they took her off just to protect her. And I think once she came off, I think we came into the game a lot more. And again, it was just one of those things, if we had some great opportunities, we did create some really good opportunities. And again, I saw story of our season, we weren't clinical. Would we have got a result from it? No, because Shelburne were very good and they created an awful lot that they didn't convert as well. But look, I suppose if you look at it as it's probably nearly a reflection of our season. We do so well, but in patches, and that's it. It's in patches. It has to be longer. And with teams against Shelburne, you can't start the way we started. You can't leave them have as much as the ball as we were willing to leave them have it in the first half, because they're just too good. They have too many good footballers that will punish you. Hannah Healy there, I was watching in the first half, and all I was thinking is Hannah Healy's brilliant, but she's brilliant because look who she has around her. She's all these experienced girls who are able to referee a game and still play really, really well. And our younger players Ellie O'Brien, Heidi Markin, they're as good as Hannah Healy. It's just that they're only surrounded by each other. They're surrounded by other young players, and I said, we're probably beating the same drum all season, but that's it. Like Jess Fitzgerald and Peamount, like she's a brilliant player, but she's helped by who she has around her. They're coaching them through games, and we don't have that. And for that reason, I really feel for some of our younger players, because I think, as you said, they're every bit as good as these players. But it's just they're kind of with that one hand tied behind their back, that old analogy that I've probably used all season. And like hopefully we can make changes next season and bring in a couple of experienced players to help them, because I think this group can thrive like with a couple of experienced players in there.
Yeah. Look, we just want to say it again. We're no way saying that Cork City would have got a result from the game if it was a different referee, or that the referee. It's just he was so poor in the first half, and Ray Matthews is a very experienced referee. He's doing men's first division games for years. I was surprised and stunned that he allowed himself to be manipulated the way he was manipulated by a Shelburne side who are obviously well able to do those things and have been doing it regularly all season. Just a little side note, another one of my stupid stats, Shelburne have the worst disciplinary record in the division this year. And I can kind of see why. And their games also have the most yellow cards in their game. So they do it themselves, and you could see they drew it out of us. Alex Mendes gets booked for basically, she's probably lucky she wasn't sent off for grabbing Rachel Graham, but Rachel Graham's left a little bit on Ellie O'Brien, and that's what's annoyed Alex, and that's why that whole situation explodes. The Shauna McCarthy booking is just nonsense. I mean, it's nonsense. Like, Shauna commits a foul on Megan Smyth Lynch. The ref isn't even talking to her. He just gives the free, walking away. Megan Smyth Lynch starts moaning and groaning and everything else, and all of a sudden Ray Matthews is calling Shauna McCarthy back for a stern word. And 2 minutes later, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. 2 minutes later, Shels player throws himself to the ground just outside the box, and there's a foul given against Shauna. She hasn't even touched her, and the yellow card comes out. Ellie O'Brien's yellow card. Nonsense. And it was all, like as I said, I was just surprised that Ray Matthews allowed himself to be worked over the way he was worked over on Saturday, especially in the first half. Second half, he seemed to have a bit more grip of it. We're not saying that's the reason Cork City lost in any way, shape or form. Shelburne are fantastic side, fantastic players. Maybe not great to watch, as you said to Shauna last week, Eileen, but you can see the quality they have. They're in the cup final next week. But we have to talk about the refereeing and the performance. And we had Mark Lynch against, his performance against Bowes. So in general, there is an issue with refereeing. John, the second goal, I asked, and after the game I was told that officially the reason the goal was given was because our fullback Alex Mendes is the one who makes contact with Hannah Walsh. That's correct, but they make contact because the Shelburne player comes through the back of Alex Mendes and pushes her into Hannah Walsh. So it's no matter what way you do it up, it's a foul. And I can't understand it well. It's your two players collide. Hannah has the ball almost caught in her hand, and it's knocked out of her hand because Alex Mendes is pushed into her and foul. I mean, again, they would have won the game 4-1 instead of 5-1. Doesn't contribute to the end of the game, but there's a big difference between going in 1-0 up at halftime and going in 2-0 up at halftime, or going in 1-0 down and going in 2-0 down. You can still have confidence at 1-0 down. At 2-0 down, it's a much, much harder game to get yourself back into.
Yeah, I think you're going too easy on him. I think he was an absolute fucking disgrace, to be honest. 100%.
Okay.
Like, so no, honestly, Hannah Walsh collects that ball and she stands in the line, we'll say, and then Alex Mendes is standing next to her, and Alex Kavanagh comes flying in, pushes Alex Mendes when they're both stationary into Hannah, and Hannah falls over the line. Is he going to say that's not a free? It's a joke, absolute joke. He was an absolute disgrace. Like the Shauna booking before, about 3 or 4 minutes before she got booked, Hannah Healy went to ground. Might have been something to do with the pitch, but she went to ground in on Shauna. Shauna skips out of the way of the tackle, but if Shauna doesn't have the agility to skip out of the way of the tackle, it's potentially a leg breaker. And it's an absolute disgrace. And he doesn't even look at it. Rachel Graham, when she's on the ground in the second half, she's after fouling Ellie. A free's given, she reaches up and she pulls Ellie's hair. That's why Alex Mendes goes nuts. Fourth official sees it, calls Matthews over, tells him what's happened, and he books Alex and Graham. Graham should be gone for that. I don't care whether it's pulling hair or not, but you're raising. If that was a man's game, You're raising your hand to someone else's head. She should have been gone. Ciara McNamara got absolutely clattered in the first half between two Shels players. She came up holding her head. He didn't even look at it. Eileen Donnelly's gone through on the end line about at 2-0 just before half time. Keenan comes in through the back of her, and it's not a free kick. Shels got absolutely everything in that game, and it's not because it is because the referee is weak, and he's let Megan Smyth-Lynch and Rachel Graham and Alex Kavanagh and everyone else around the pitch ref the game. He was an absolute disgrace. He's a weak man who just absolutely let himself be pulled by the balls around by senior players when he should have been having a bit of a spine. He was a disgrace. Look, 3 of our goals were clearances that Shels players blocked down. The 5th goal they scored was a run from midfield that we didn't track. Hannah Walsh saved at least 10 or 15 shots on target. Shels would have beaten us anyway, but that doesn't change the fact that the referee was an absolute disgrace. There's no other way to say it. He was a joke. And the thing, Decky, I'm going off one. The thing is, though, Ray Matthews is an experienced referee, so it makes it worse. After Shauna gets booked for the Shels players' dive, Eileen Donnelly has a word with him. And what does he do? He pulls her out of the wall from where she's standing next to Ellie O'Brien, and he gives her a dressing down like she's a 3-year-old. When Megan Smyth-Lynch is moaning, he's going around going, Jesus, Megan, you're right, I better book Shauna. The only player he pulled aside to give a dressing down to for all the moment on that game was Eileen Donnelly. He's a joke, absolute joke. And he shouldn't be given a man's game next year because of that performance. Absolutely. And I hope he listens to this, because if I see him, I'll say to his face as well, he's a joke. Absolute joke. Honest to God, it was a disgrace. And I know we would have lost anyway, and I know you're laughing, but it's true. He was an absolute disgrace.
I'm just raising you weren't in the crowd with us.
I would have, but it was horrible. I watched the game back so I could take down how many times he screwed us over. And every single time it's because Megan Smyth-Lynch is standing next to him telling him how he should ref a game. It was like watching Chris Forrester in the men's game. She was just following him around going, do you know, Ray, you should book her, I'd say there. And he's going, Megan, it was a good idea. All right, I think I will. Egypt. Weak little man. Absolutely pathetic. I'll shut up now.
I'm laughing because I can now retire. Brilliant. I could just, if you could do the men's pod, I could retire. I don't need to rant and rave anymore. I mean, I'll give you all my ref stats. I'll give them to you all. There's no bother. I'll give you Ian Stokes' email address so you can email him instead of me emailing him. And I'll just go happily off into retirement. Yeah, it's that was unexpected, but I'm glad. I know when John put in the WhatsApp group about 10 minutes, just so you know, I'm pretty cranky tonight. I thought we might get something, but I didn't quite think it was going to go that way, you know? Awesome stuff. Guys, if we move on from the refereeing performance to our own performance, obviously we're beaten 5-1. Defensively, some of the goals conceded were really, really poor. And I guess I'm looking for light in a lot of dark tunnels, but I know the season's over, but we have actually scored now in 4 games in a row. We only scored 11 all season. We've gotten 6 of those in those last 4 games. So is there signs, Eileen, or positives to be taken? As I said, are signs there that, okay, as I said, you're trying to grab onto small things, but maybe there is some signs there that we are getting somewhere. And I think, to be fair, we were beaten 5-1 by Shelburne because we didn't want to go out and just defend the 18-yard box and be one of those teams that said we're going to try and be 0-0 at half time. Danny wants them to go and play the way they're going to play, and he realises they're probably going to lose games like this 4-5-1. But the hope is that next year they'll have that experience and they'll be used to the system and used to playing it, and that they'll be better. So are there signs there that maybe we might be better?
I think there's an awful lot of positive signs. I think if you look at this season as a whole, like from where we started, we concede goals, our heads drop, like we just kind of nearly throw in the towel. Like that does not happen anymore. Even like as you said, like we're losing well, but we're still attacking, we're still creating chances, we get our goal. I think that's down as well. And I know Danny brought in, now I might be Dennis Lorden, is that his name? He's the fellow Danny did the podcast with, he's performance coach. Like he's been a brilliant addition to his backroom staff, because like he does a huge amount with them mentality wise. And I think you can see that. I think that's plain for everyone to see. And little things like, as you said there, like I know Alex gets booked, and look, if it goes a different way and she gets sent off, I'm probably saying something different. I love that. I love that they're going to get stuck in for each other. Again, that's things that's not happening at the start of the season. Like they're going to bat for each other. They're getting on each other's backs when things go wrong. And when they concede a goal or concede two, you can see them geeing each other up, going again, going again. If you look at it, like football's not always black and white, and like results obviously have been poor, but like if you're looking at it through the season, there are positives to be taken. But again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, we need experienced players in there with them. We need three or four to come in, and if that means, as I said, players have to be paid, expenses have to be paid. I think Shauna spoke about it last week in terms of like what Athlone do, what Shelburne do. There are players looking to come to play in Ireland. Can we reach into that market? But again, we have to know what we can pay them. And look, again, their conversations, we don't know, have they been had, or did that all depend on what was going to happen with the men's team or whatever. But I just hope there's a budget there, because I do think we have the core of a really good group. Like you now have like Bradley, Senna, Cotter, O'Brien, even like Mangan, Mackin. They're all now senior players, but they're still inexperienced. Like, but they have one season under their belt. But how good have all of them been, like individually at times and collectively at times? And how good can they be if you add in a little bit of experience, if that little bit of know-how to just coach them at times in games when things get a little bit tough? Do you know? So I just think like we can have a really high ceiling here, but you have to help them. You have to help them.
Those players that you listed there, Eileen, they're all the younger players who have come through the academy, made debuts this year. And as the season finishes, I think you've seen the development that they have undergone. Do you expect them all to be here next year?
I think you'd be very naive to not think that other players are coming, or not other clubs are coming in for a whole host of our players. And like, I'm not, if I've left someone out there that's not any slight in them, as you said, like the two Mendeses are still very young. You kind of forget maybe that they're younger because they've come back from treaty where they played senior football. Like we'd be very foolish. Like all of our players individually, like will offer something at every other National League club. I don't doubt that for a second. Like there's probably a group of like 15 or 16 that could get a club elsewhere very easily. And a lot of them have stayed for a number of years, and I hope our younger players will. But I do think the club has to now show its intent. As he said, like this isn't all down on a new owner. This has been an issue for a few years. And I think something that probably needs to happen is like we need a committee for the women's side of it, because right now I think they're probably getting a little bit lost. And it can't all be on Danny to run everything. Like there should be somebody that he can go to, because with the best will in the world, he's probably going to Ian or Erica for stuff, and they're probably doing their best, but like they can't be all things to all people either. Like, can we have, and I think it's something Damien had mentioned before, but like you need to have one or two people that are just focusing on the women's side so we can get stuff done for the women's side. Like there's a lot of good people around Cork, like the likes like Chris O'Mahony and Pat Healy, who were like ran the women's side of the club for years before it ever, like go to them and ask them for a dig out, because they know how this league works and where we can go to push it on. But right now the women's side is a little bit lost from what I can see in terms of the club, in the big picture in the club. And that's not a reflection on anyone in the club. But I think we've so many full-time staff and they can't do everything. So as I said, I just think if you could have somebody set up that Danny can go to, that I need this or that, without him having to fight for everything for the players, or the players having to fight for everything. It should just be done. I don't think we should have to fight for these things either.
Yeah. And like, I mean, you've referenced there that there would be interest from other clubs here. Could you see any interest in any of those players from further afield maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'd be really. I know there's a club in England after one of our players. Like I know Eva is on the. Whether I should say that or not, I know she's on the radar of a club in England, a championship club in England. I could see exactly why. Like she's brilliant. we can build our team around her. She's captained this club so well this year in really, really difficult circumstances. But like, it's hard. Look, it's hard, even if you're, let's not be silly now. Let's not say this is the Cork City issue. This is a league-wide issue. Like, you can't hold a player back if they're getting a chance to go play like professionally over in England. You can't. But like, somebody, the other side of it is, if there's stuff here like your education, things like that, and maybe you don't see your full career in football, which is absolutely fine too, but you still want to play at a really high level, you should be able to do that here in this league, because the league should be a high enough level. But I just think right now, what does somebody like Eva, or in a few years, Ellie, Fianna, Heidi, Niamh, Clodagh Fitzgerald, what do they have? Like, they're just going to say, just get me out of here, because this club is offering me nothing. Like, they can't even tell me where my home ground is. Like, do you know what I mean? We have to be able to offer them things. So look, as I said, whatever happens with Eva, I'm delighted, and I think it should be it's a good sign for younger players as well, like that there is a pathway here from this club. You don't necessarily have to move elsewhere in Ireland to come to the attention. Like, if you're good enough, you will come to the attention of clubs and professional.
I'm glad you eventually dropped that piece of information, because I was running out of leading questions to ask you to try and get it out of you. And I couldn't ask John. Normally I try to go one the other, and it was like, no, I need to get this out of Eileen if I can. John, look, I mean, obviously the last time you spoke to us, you were accusing the referee being a weak little man. So is there any other observations you'd like to make on the game? The setup? Anything you'd like to put out there?
I thought Sean McCarthy was brilliant in the face of the weak little man. I thought she got forward really, really well. I think we do have an issue. I don't know that Laura Shine is a winger. I think we have missed Chloe Atkinson's pace as an option on the right wing since she got injured. I think Laura's better centrally. I think because we haven't got that pace, I think we, no disrespect to Eileen Donnelly, she put in a fantastic first half performance, but that was a very heavy pitch, and I think she ran out of legs a bit in the second half. Again, Eileen, is only just backwards a short time after having to take a break during the summer, because we don't have somewhere for her and Hannah to stay when they're not in college down here, which is something we have to address in the future as well. But I thought when Kira came on and Fianna started pulling out a little bit wider, I thought we finished quite strong in the wings. I think we're two up the middle. And I think Heidi probably needs a good off season now. I think, look, again, she's only with us a couple of months and coming back off a bad injury. But I think the ball just wasn't staying up long enough up top. And because we were going through the middle and over reliant on getting that ball into Heidi every single time, then we weren't getting up quick enough to her. And I think it's just one thing. Look, and Daniel probably disagree with me on this. I don't get the short kick out to Eva pulling her back into the box. I think Eva's one of the out balls you need if you're trying to play out from the back, not starting to move within her own penalty area. And one of the goals came from a pass from her trying to work out, because she's only got Ellie to pass to then ahead of her to break the line. And I find that goal kick movement a little bit strange. But in terms of positivity, I think there's loads there. But the big thing I'd agree with where Eileen started is the mentality of the team these days has just changed completely. Had we gone in, like, I know we ended up losing 5-1, but at the start of this season and previous seasons, if we're 2-0 down to Shelburne after half an hour, we'll say, we're not scoring in that game, and we're out of it and camped in our own box for the rest of the match. And we kept on having a go. We kept on trying to move the ball. We created a few decent chances, to be fair. And as much as Shelburne were the better team, the fact of the matter is that the goals were all of our own doing. And if we can start I know we kind of go on about kind of individual mistakes a little bit, if we can start getting rid of that from our game, there's nothing between us and a lot of the teams that are above us. There really isn't. But again, we have to do something about getting experience into the team.
It's a reoccurring theme, all right, is the experience one. Just talking of experience and just something you mentioned there, John. Shauna McCarthy, when she got booked, I was kind of going to myself, it's okay. There's no way Shauna is getting herself sent off here. Whereas, if it was a younger player or even a you would have a fear that there might be something would follow that might see them walking. But I think it was almost reassuring that it was Shauna was the one that got booked, because it was just complete confidence that she'll be able to mind herself and ensure that she doesn't see red, and she didn't come close. But I don't think she committed another foul afterwards. I could be wrong on that. Would she be your player of the season, Eileen? I know we spoke about this a few weeks back, but end of season now, officially, Eileen Ring's player of the season is?
Shauna McCarthy.
Okay. Any notable, unlucky second placers?
Jessie, and based on her in the last, since we've come back after the break, Ellie O'Brien, I really think she's kicked on so much this second half of the season. I said it before, I think the ceiling is incredibly high for her individually and for her playing career. But I think Jessie was brilliant as well all season, solid out, and a great addition in terms of that real bite and that real, I'm sure she won't mind me saying it, horrible bitch on the pitch. We really missed that. I mean that in the kindest way possible, and you 100%, it comes directly from your mother. It comes directly from your mother, and I don't think she'll be offended by it either. It's okay.
No. John, your player of the season?
To be honest, look, I would have thought Shauna should have gotten a lot more chances down the last few years, and I think now that she's actually got a decent run this team and shown what she can do, she's only gone from strength to strength and improved. She would be my player of the season as well, to be honest. I'd agree completely with Eileen on Jessie, particularly the first half of the season, and Ellie the last few months have been brilliant. But I do think another I would mention is Ciara Mack. She dropped out of the team for a couple of weeks there at one stage, and you could actually see the difference in her and in the team when she came back in. Just her communication and her being calm, and it's a testament to her that Jessie actually, as good as Jessie was, she found it hard to get back into the team because of the way Ciara and Heidi next to her were playing, towards over the last few games. I think Fiona Bradley's worth to mention as well. I know we talk about her a lot, but what probably has impressed, I knew her from underage in terms of her ability, and look, I'll be straight out, I would have thought it was way too soon for her to start this year to be playing in senior football, but after the lessons she gave Jess Gleeson in the games against DLR, honest to God, she's fearless. Even in Shelburne, she took some heavy hits, got up, kept going. She's just a little dynamo, and I hope we hang on to her as well. Because look, I'll be honest with you, she's from Kerry. Treaty will come in hard for her. They really will. If they're going pro, she's one they're going to be identified as within their catchment area. But overall, Shauna would be my player of the year as well. Sorry for the long, convoluted answer.
Not at all. We're only an hour and 12 minutes, although by the time I cut some of it out, probably an hour and 10 minutes in now or so. So just all nice. Look, I go for Shauna as well, 3 for 3. I'm surprised nobody's mentioned Eva Mangan. I still think maybe are we starting to take her a little bit for granted. I know she probably didn't hit the heights of last season and whatnot, but
we completely
Eva
take her for granted.
Oh yeah. She was the best player on the pitch on Sunday. She was outstanding. But I think it's just we've almost come to expect that level from her. And it's unfair on her because she absolutely should be mentioned. To be fair, thanks for making us look like fools, Decky.
Sorry, Eva.
No bother. That's what I'm here for. That's just a quick shout out to Joe Seward. Obviously, last game of the season, He does an incredible job on commentary. We watch the games back and he's doing it on his own, and that's the frightening part. I've done it as part of it too once, and it's difficult enough. You're trying to hop stuff off each other and keep the conversation going. He has nobody to hop anything off. He's just going for 90 minutes on his own. It's an incredibly, incredibly difficult thing to do. I can't explain to people how difficult it is if you haven't done it. So tip of the hat to Joe Seward, magnificent again all season. And hopefully he's back again next season to share his dulcet tones with everybody on LOI TV again. Lads, finally, we need to wrap this up. I'll do it as one question. I had it in two, but we'll do it as one. What does the men's relegation mean for the women's side, and what will the off-season bring, or what does it need to bring, Eileen?
I think what's happened with the men's side could potentially now be used as a cop-out to not put money into the women's side, but it's going to be just that, a cop-out. I'm sorry, it shouldn't have any bearings, because the club should have had this conversation with Danny before the season ended, therefore before we knew where the men's team was going. This women's side doesn't need huge investment. We're not asking, I doubt Danny Murphy's asking for anything that's absolutely outrageous. The entire league is investing in their women's sides. And I'm talking about investments in terms of facilities, what you have in stuff like the sports performance coach, your S&C, gym facilities. If they don't have access to the Mardyke, can they be given something else? If they're like not living close enough to the Mardyke, if they're in Kerry or wherever they are, can they be provided with gym membership in that place so they can do their S&C programs, expenses if they're traveling? And obviously, look, we speak about bringing players in, so they're going to have to be paid expenses. It is what it is. And I always say, like, I don't think the majority of this squad is looking for money. They're not. And a lot of them are based in Cork. I don't think anyone should be out of pocket playing for Cork City Women. And those days have well and truly gone in this game. Well and truly gone. And they're the team that are out in the community. It's not the men's players I see out in the community. The goodwill is towards the women's players. It's not towards the men's players. We could see that at the moment. As soon as a man's player steps outside the door at the moment, like they're getting it in the ear. Like, whereas like the girls show up at their clubs, they show up at charity events, they show up everywhere. They're these brilliant ambassadors for the club, but the club have to do more for them. They have to do more for them. They have to give them what they would give the men's in terms of facilities and what's available to them. And I'm not suggesting go all Shamrock Rovers and just throw money at it. I'm not. It's 2 or 3 experienced players that need expenses. If we're going to be using UCC scholarships and players don't have accommodation in the summer, they have to be given expenses to travel up and down to Cork. I don't think we need to provide accommodation if someone's travelling in Ireland, because all over this league players are travelling and players are willing to travel once petrol and stuff like that is provided for. There is no issue with that. I'm not suggesting we go out and buy a house for our women's players unless we're bringing a couple in from abroad. I don't think that needs to happen, but it's not silly money that's been asked for, but a little bit will go a very, very long way, I think, with the squad. And where the men's team plays next season is completely irrelevant to the women's side. It is, and it can't be used as a cop-out. It cannot be used as a cop-out, because I'd be then saying, well, you didn't give the women's side any money when you're in the Premier Division, so like, why is it now different? Do you know what I mean? So it's a cop-out if that's used.
John, anything to add to that?
I'd disagree with Eileen on one small point. About with the men's team being in the first division, I think it actually would be more of a cop out not to support the women's team, because in any way, shape, or form, your playing budget in the first division should be less than the Premier. There should be more money available to get us. It should take less money to get us promoted next year on the men's side than it took to keep us up this year. The plan should be better on the men's side. We shouldn't have to be bringing in a rake of players in mid-season. But again, this should all have been agreed with Danny anyway. There was always the opportunity that the possibility that we were going to be relegated. We've been guaranteed to be in the playoff for the last, four weeks. So it was always going to be a toss of the coin whether we beat, whoever it was going to be, but Waterford. But that I agree completely with Eileen. It should not impact on any way in what plans and funding is available to Danny. And there has to be funds and facilities and support given to Danny now that we didn't necessarily see this year. But to be fair, and I'll give the owner credit, Danny said at the outset that he was happy with what he had this season. But to be very blunt about it, if you have a multimillionaire owner of a football club, it's a club, it's not a team, and hands have to go into pockets or we're at nothing. Every other club is doing it, we'll just fall behind, and there's a relegation potentially coming up, or a second tier coming up in a couple of years in the league, and we don't want to be in the bottom of that.
I just have to counteract that, John, at one point. You said it's going to cost less to run the men's team because wages will be smaller. But the income is also going to be smaller. Numbers attending home games are possibly going to be down, but things like season ticket sale have to be sold at a lesser cost. Maybe sponsorship won't be as expensive. Match balls and match sponsorship and all that stuff. So yes, while it won't cost as much, the income is also going to come down, you'd imagine, and that probably then levels itself out. Are you willing to accept that?
I am to a point, but initially I agree with you completely. But I think if we get the planning right in the off season and you're challenging at the top of the first division, and we're in and we're looking like we're getting promoted, the crowd come back, and I think 2022 showed that we had a very high average attendance in the first division 2022. On our run for promotion. So I do accept that there's other things to factor in. But look, even if we are bringing in less money, that's something that was already known to be a possibility, and it shouldn't impact on Danny's budget, in my mind. Again, if you've got a multimillionaire owner, we're not talking like we're asking for €5 million for the women's team. You're talking for relatively. You're probably, to be honest, let's face it, you're probably talking on one decent squad player on the men's side, to be. That's probably kind of the level of input you're looking for.
Okay, that's fair enough. I guess that's as good a spot as any to end Las Damas for the season. We will hopefully be back next year. It's a long off season, but hopefully we will return. But just to note, if or when we do return, you may have noticed the format has changed ever so slightly in the last month or so, that we have that the pods are slightly longer and we are doing a lot more on the National League as a whole, and then getting into the Cork City stuff. And that's the way we plan to take Las Damas forward next season. It just comes down to the fact that you can't do a podcast week in, week out on a club team when you don't have access to that club, you don't have access to the players, you don't have access to the management and the rest of it. And Las Damas will always be a Cork City podcast. We will always be Cork City supporters. But for the benefit of the podcast, and we think and we hope for the benefit of the people listening, there is a plan in place to expand it and talk a bit more and spend a bit more time on what's going on in the National League as a whole, and then get into the Cork City stuff. So, as you said, an hour-long pod, maybe a half an hour each, something like that. We will tidy it up during the off-season. But just want to thank everybody who has listened this year. Wish everybody a happy Christmas, even though it's only the second week in November. A happy off-season. So hopefully hope and pray that sixth managerial casualty happens somewhere along the line, so I can come back. So I could come back at the start of next season and say I was right. I love being right. Guys, sorry, very quickly. Cup final predictions. One word. Eileen?
Athlone.
Oh, John?
I'm amazed. Shels, but I can't believe Eileen has turned against her second favourite team.
I think now 3 late goals coming back like that and in Tala. I don't know if it's an omen, lads.
I hope you're right, like, but I still think Shels will do it.
I wish we weren't an hour and 23 minutes into this recording, otherwise I could go on for a lot longer. But I hope and pray Athlone batter them to within an inch of their life. Batter them. 4, 5, 6. It will be a game with goals, though. Athlone score goals, Shelburne score goals. I can see it being 3-2, 4-2, something like that. But look, best of luck to Athlone in that game anyway. So look, guys, we'll leave it there. We'll park it for the year. We'll say happy Christmas, happy off season, happy Hanukkah, anything else you want to have. And for the last time this year, I'll say adios.
Adios.